On to our Take Note conversation this morning, and many thanks for still staying with us. Now we are having a sensitive conversation, but this time round is with a positive, of course, an encounter that made her come out of that and create something that is more powerful with a goal to it. Now, when she and her colleagues walked out of the university to protest the rising cost of tuition at Makerere University, no one had heard of her. Now, she was kidnapped by unknown people, beaten, and ended up in hospital. Now, the first time she spoke to my colleague, Steven Mbidde, right there, after her kidnap ordeal, Makerere University student leader Mollie Saasiraabo accused her colleagues of betraying her and causing and turning into something else. Now, most of us didn't understand what she meant. Now, a few months after this particular ordeal, Speria has unveiled her plan. She is building a cross-platform movement to fight for free university education in Uganda called the Pink Movement. And she's here to talk to us about it. You know, I salute you, girl. Welcome to Morning at 10 TV.
Thank you.
You're well?
I'm well.
Okay.
Yes.
I think I'll start off, before we get into this movement, this new movement, and congratulations for that, by the way.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
I cannot say that I'm well yet. I'm not psychologically well as I used to be. But at least I'm better. At least I can come out. I've been basically in the hospital for the last 2 months. And if I can come to a show like this one, if I can express my views, not so clearly, but at least I can try, then I say that I'm improving. Still on medication, but yeah, I'm improving.
Are you saying that the magnitude was that deep, that it's messed up with your cognitive function?
Oh yes, I spent nearly a week in coma, and after that I really could not understand what was happening in my surrounding, and till now I'm seeing a psychiatrist. I'm still on medication, strong one, so it has really messed me up, but nevertheless we are stronger.
Indeed, you're strong.
Yeah.
I want to ask you this question because it's been some speculation in the public domain, and now that you're here, it will be great for you to clarify this. Over the past few days, we've been having, quite a number of, students coming out to say that they were sexually abused. It was also a heated debate in Parliament last year.
True.
Were you sexually abused?
Personally, I was not sexually abused, but I cannot say that there were students who were not sexually abused. As we all know that the demonstration started on 22nd, with us, the girls leading them, and on 23rd, that is when I was kidnapped.
Right.
And since then, I go into the hospital and I don't get to see what has been happening. So, I'm not the right person to come out and really defend this, but because we are student leaders, these girls come to us and talk to us. But the victims have not yet gotten the guts, the strength and the energy to come out and talk to the public. And you know how the public looks at you the moment you come out and say, I was sexually abused. They'll call you names. They'll label you as the raped one, as the sexually abused one, and most people don't want that. So they rather keep quiet.
Right. So you were not sexually abused?
Yes, I wasn't.
Thank you for that clarification. Let's go to the Pink Movement.
Sure.
You know, you're a strong girl, and let me just high-five you again for that. I mean, what you've gone through, and you still have the guts. Are you not afraid?
I think everyone in the opposition is afraid. I'm not saying that because I'm in the opposition, but every time you come out to oppose government, every time you come out to pick out a few things that you think are not right, even if you're just an activist who is fighting for the common good of citizens, you are hunted down.
Correct.
So before I started this, I knew I was going to be hunted down. I've been saying this, that as a person, I'm not affected by high tuition. Since my childhood, I've never paid tuition or fees. I've had scholarships, I've had school bursaries, I've never paid. But I've had colleagues whom we started with and up to now are out of school. They don't know what school means now for them. They are married off, they have children, as young as I am. So I would say that I started this well knowing that what I'm going for is not easy.
So the cost is greater than the fear.
Exactly.
And than the opposition as well.
Exactly.
So the Pink movement was actually birthed out of that fracas, out of the picketing that you saw the students go for last year. Let me ask you this. You want and you're crying out for free university education in Uganda.
Yes.
Initially, it was 15% increment on tuition, functional fees. It was then dropped and maintained on functional fees. Was that not enough? Before we go to breaking down what that money a student pays goes to facilitate, wasn't that enough?
Well, that is how we look at it. We who see things from the other side. But people who are in power are not looking at it in that manner. They tell us it is not enough. 15% tuition increment is not enough. You know, they had suggested 60% at Makerere University, and the students had to bargain. And there were a lot of fracas that happened. But our administration up to now cries out and says, I've tried to engage. Before we go to the streets, we do dialogue. We dialogue with administrators. We dialogue with stakeholders. But when you're engaging with them, you realize that they are looking at education as a product. So they want to sell it to you, and they are saying that everything is at a high cost. So what do you expect us to do?
So what you're saying is that out of that frustration, now you're calling for it to be totally free. Now, don't you think you're being unrealistic here? Looking at where Uganda is and breaking that down, let me just break down where this money goes. And it's a conversation. I want us to be totally open. Now that you've seen dialogue is not working, let's push it from an activism angle. Now, when I look at the statistics here and the breakdown of what the pay, the tuition pay that every Makerere student, pretty much sets out to the university, what it goes to do, they're saying that 56% of the monies collected out of every student goes to, of course, staff payment. 56% goes to the salaries. Now, I have another statistic saying that material supplies take up 11.96%. Material supplies, which are critical in any financial institution. Sorry, you can cut that. We also have student costs. You know, for every student to be in the university, there are costs that run. That caters, or pretty much what is taken out on that, is 11.12%. Now, the infrastructure, which I know most of the students are saying they're still not at par in terms of infrastructure in the college, takes up 1.85%. Utilities takes up 4.37%. And staff development, 1.37%. We also have research, which is critical in any institution, 0.82%. This is facilitation. The services that are facilitated out of the tuition fee or the monies that are paid by the students. Now, if you're calling for free university, don't you think all this will be compromised?
Well, to start with, any capitalist would think like that. Because that is the world we've grown up into, capitalism. That is how we have been trained to think, that you should not have anything that is free. But from a communist understanding and perspective, I believe there can be a free education. Not just at Makerere University, not just high institutions of learning, but the whole of Uganda. That I know that I wake up in the morning, I am bathed, and I go to nursery up to university, and I'm paying nothing. I'll share with you the national objectives of Uganda in line with education. I like that. I will just read them verbatim.
All right.
And the first is saying that the state shall promote free and compulsory basic education. This is a national objective. And the third says that the state shall take appropriate measures to afford every citizen equal opportunity to attain the highest educational standards possible. And the third is saying that individuals, religious bodies and other non-government organizations shall be free to found and operate educational institutions if, only if, they comply with the general education policy of the country and the main national standards. And what is the general policy of the country in line with education? That the state shall promote free and compulsory basic education.
What is basic education to you? Let's start from there.
Basic education. That is why I told you that from nursery, I'm having a free education.
Yes.
But is it free in Uganda? Do you have a nursery that is providing free education?
Well, they're working for it, and we've been having UPE, USE somewhat free. A huge burden was taken out of the parents, so to speak. Well, they have to pay for a few things here and there, but that was catered for.
And what is the importance of having me get through, because I've been through UPE schools, USE schools. So what is the importance of having me get through UPE, USE, and I reach university and I cannot afford?
Let me ask you, Mollie, you know, I've broken the percentages down. And we are having Makerere University at the state as it is at now because the student, the parent, is paying a great role to maintaining that standard by the money they pay. If they stop paying, where do you think the money will come from? I was looking at, we currently have a GDP of 30 billion USD as a country. And the deficit, the fiscal deficit for the financial year, of course, 2019-2020 was at 8.7% of the GDP. Meaning that we're grappling. Every sector, I'm sure you watch the news now that you're an activist, every sector is grappling. Every public servant is grappling. We want salaries, we want salaries. Let me ask you this. If you are the president of the country, knowing all these needs that your people have, knowing all the needs that every sector has, and the capacity your people have to finance that, of course it's still wanting, because we're looking at URA saying that for the first quarter of 2019 they were having a collection deficit of 680 billion UGX. That shows that even us as Ugandans, we don't have the capacity, and financing a financial year takes two, where we finance it and we borrow money for it. We also know that we are grappling with debt.
Yes.
So if you are the president, would you support free education at the university level and still guarantee your Ugandans that they will still have quality education at that?
If I were the president, or if I was the president and I can be president, the first thing I would do, I would cut my budget. Because is it now 200 billion or 250 billion that goes to the castle? I call it the castle because it's no longer even a state. To me, I feel it's overrated. It is overrated. I would cut that budget and direct it to education. The first thing to do. And this, is it the gift vote? Yes. Which I do not really support. I heard Ndevisa talking about it and I liked it. There are certain things that are directed, money is directed to certain budgets that actually use this. Yes. Like the castles, the state's budget, like the gifts vote. Some of those are actually useless. They're not supposed to be, they're overrated.
But do you think that will be sufficient to cater or to guarantee free university education for all?
And what about if we went to the corruption, the money that is swindled in corruption, that is swindled, that is embezzled? As I told you, if we were taught, or if we are trained to think like communists, things would be better. All right. But we are trained to think like capitalists, so when anyone talks of something that is free, oh my God, it looks impossible. I
like your reasoning on corruption. Indeed, if corruption is fought, some of these things would be achieved. Exactly. Pink movement. You know, during that fracas last year, even the First Lady, with all due respect, said that she was worried that some of you were being taken advantage of by the opposition, and that there could be a possibility that the opposition was financing the unrest in Makerere University. So now that you've established the Pink movement, out of all that fracas and controversy, Who is financing your activities?
First of all, I will first quash down what she said. I already did that some time back. You see, at times forced to think that, as we said, with due respect, that I call her Marie Antoinette sometimes, with my reasons, that she's shallow in her thinking at times. And I watched her statement when she came out and she was talking about these unrests and the ruckus that was at Makerere University, and I was really disappointed. Basically, when she comes out and says that if you cannot afford Makerere, then go to UCU.
Ideally, you know, Makerere University is one of the most affordable universities in the region.
Exactly. And you're telling me, that is why
in the region, my dear.
Sometimes I call her Marie Antoinette. Yes, she's telling us we cannot afford bread, let us go for cakes. So to go back what you said, of course, we were not funded. None of these demonstrations were funded by anyone. Opposition does not have money. Where do they get the money from? They do not have the money. So where will they get the money to give
Mr. Chagulanyi was abroad pretty much doing his fundraisers last year.
If he got money, it would be to use in his elections, not to fund university students who are fighting for their own rights.
We saw him commissioning quite a number of student leaders last year.
Yes,
pro-people power.
Those are people who are in politics. Those are the politicians who are in people power, not the activists like us who are on the streets fighting for the common good of every citizen. So you asked that who is funding us, and I can say that for now, we fund ourselves.
How? Where do you get your money? You're a student.
And what are the activities that are there to do? There are quite many. But I will tell you that the revolutions that have happened in the world, and they have been really strong, are funded by people themselves. That if I need to come with a t-shirt, if we need a t-shirt for the demonstration, I'm willing to pay for that t-shirt. And that is what the Pink Movement is doing. And that is what it wants to do. That we are not going to be there fighting for each and every individual. We are not going to go to hear that tuition has been increased in Gulu and we rush to Gulu. We are going to train armies. So basically, I'm warning I'm on a national television, and I'm warning the army that this time around, when they come to fight, we're all ready to fight.
Let me ask you this question. Of course, you've said, and this will be my last question as we wrap this up. You've said that if you were president, you'd fight corruption with all you've got to be able to make sure that the critical sectors don't suffer. Well, we know that even if that is fought, the population of the country is still growing. We're looking at every woman, 5 children, 5.5. Of course, when you round that up, 6 children per woman. So even if corruption is fought, and we don't look at the issue of controlling our population growth, you'll still need to cater for education as a government. Now, are you not worried that you'll be, in the future, categorized as a noisemaker entity like the other activism groups, whereby they just make noise with zero solutions? Because now you're saying you're promoting free education, but are you giving government other options where they can leverage to be able to get their funding and promote free education at university level in Uganda? Are you looking at that, whereby you're not just noisemakers, but you're looking critically into research, whereby you're telling government, fine, we are pushing for free university education, but these are the areas that you've not leveraged on, that you can actually get financing and funding for you to achieve that dream for every Ugandan student? Are you looking at that? Are you not worried you're going to be categorized as a noisemaker in the future, of course, without solutions?
You are totally right. And before we started with the Pink Movement, we were running a campaign called SWEPAD, Save Girls Education Campaign, because we realized even when the government makes it a free education, there are quite other challenges that are leaving people out of school, especially the girl child.
Correct.
So we are not just looking at education, we are not just making noise about this. We are doing certain things like holding workshops and crying out to the funders. For example, in a university like Makerere University, it has funders that fund the institution.
All right.
So we want to help out on that as well.
Okay.
That when we're getting to a budget, we can sit down and debate.
Good.
Yes.
All right, homework for you.
Yes.
Still on free education at university level. Next time I host you, I want you to come up with a list of the avenues that you've actually made your research on for them to actually complement what government is putting aside for education so that you can achieve your dream. All right?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
and
you.
all the best. Stay safe.
Thank you.
All right, that is Mollie right here with us, an exclusive right here on Morning at 10 TV with me, Malaki Vilodera. Well, allow us to take a breather. We'll be back with something special, what we always do before we wrap the show up. Stay with me.